Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bapak dan Ibu, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Yoga Dwi Windy Kusmaningtyas. I'm from Universitas Muhammadiyah Jember. Today in this great occasion, I would like to share to you all about our paper entitled The Hypothetical Learning Trajectory of Enumeration Rules with Islamic Values. Islamic values. Okay, Bapak dan Ibu, ladies and gentlemen, to begin with, I would talk to you about some facts that we face in mathematics learning. As we know, mathematics learning, which include the study of permutation and combination, the starting point can be started from the surrounding context or situation. The concept of permutation and combination itself are about counting rules whose practice is very essential for human activities in everyday life. By using the concept of these counting rules, people can mention the number of ways to choose shirt and skirt that they can wear, or the number of events that may occur. And then next, in Islamic belief, especially in the Quran, there are lessons about 38 different numbers, so it cannot be denied that the Quran talks about mathematics, mostly about numbers. Thus, we can say that the rules of enumeration are very important to be taught to students related to Islamic values. And then next, other fact that we may see in teaching and learning practices, there is the decline in morals and the lack of religious values, urge the need to reform education. And then other facts that students' ability to solve and interpret problems in various situations is still relatively low. So what is our hope? We should find the appropriate learning strategies or methods that can support or develop students to think and learn mathematics meaningfully. Based on the needs and students' experiences, realistic mathematics education or RME approach can be used as one of approach in mathematics class. The RME approach consists of 5 principles, namely the use of context, and then the use of models, and next students construction, students interactivity, and intertwined. Beside the fact and the hope in the mathematics learning, we also faces challenges. How we can implement mathematics that is integrated with Islamic values. The Islamic values itself contain of three kind of values, such as Aqidah, and then Sharia, and moral values. Based on the situation that I mentioned before, my team and I are interested in conducted research that aims to design students' learning trajectories about the concept of counting rules or enumeration rules through the realistic mathematics education or RME approach that contains Islamic values. To answer our research question, we employed design research as a research method. The design research consists of 3 stages, namely preliminary design, and then the second is experimental design, and then the last is retrospective analysis. I should say that this study is the first stage of the design research, that is the preliminary design. During the initial design phase, we as a researcher prepare the learning activities through a literature review. And then from the literature review, we got data about students' difficulties in learning probability, including enumeration. Based on the review that we got, we formulated activities into learning procedures and expected students and teacher responses that we called hypothetical learning trajectory or HLT. HLT itself contains of 3 kinds: learning objective, a series of learning activities, and as I mentioned before, the expected students and teacher responses. Okay, next we move to the result and discussion of our research. We already mentioned that we want to design the hypothetical learning trajectory about enumeration rules with Islamic values. So we develop 4 activities for the learning activities. The first one is exploring a map for going to masjid, and then the second activity is finding the route for Friday prayer, and the third activity designing student own map, and the last activity about students find the number of ways of doing something by multiplying the number of choices available at each stage. Bapak dan Ibu, ladies and gentlemen, we should inform you all that through the learning activities, students will learn informally about enumeration rules through the first activity, and then come forward more formally to learn enumeration rules through the third activity by using the diagram, and then the last, students will grasp the formal knowledge about multiplication rule to solve the problem of determining the possible roots by employing the multiplication rules. Well, Bapak dan Ibu, ladies and gentlemen, this one is one activity that we provided to students. We engage them to explore map to find the number of routes that they can find from the case that we propose. Before they explore the map, in the initial activity, we let them to seek the Islamic values through one hadith and one ayah in Quran that we provided. So this one is how we integrated Islamic value through the activity and the materials. Well, Bapak dan Ibu, I will describe this slide briefly. It is about the HLT that we designed for the first activity about exploring a map for going to masjid. We let students seek the virtue of hadith Sahih Muslim, and then next we want students to find the possible route by exploring the map to determine routes for Friday prayer. And we also provided with the expected students' responses and teacher responses about the activity. As I mentioned before, in the first activity, we still let students to learn the enumeration rule by the informal ways. Okay, in the second activity, finding the route for Friday prayer, similar with the first activity, we let students to seek the virtue of hadith and ayah Al-Quran, and then after that we want students to find the possible routes by exploring the map to determine routes for Friday prayer. We also designed the expected student responses and teacher responses about the activity. The difference between the first activity and the second activity: in the first activity, students face the simple problem about finding route, but in the second activity, students will list possible routes of 2 consecutive events, so more complex or more complicated than the first activity. Move to the next activity. In the third activity, students designing their own map. In this activity, they learn more formally than the last activity in the first and the second, because in this activity, students will employ models, that is diagram, to find the number of ways of doing something. So they will multiply the number of choices available at each stage if they draw or make a diagram. Well, in the last activity about doing good deeds, students will learn formal knowledge about enumeration. In this activity, we develop 2 sub-activities, such as students will find the number of ways doing something by multiplying the number of choices available at each stage, and then the second sub-activity, student will find the number of ways of doing something by multiplying the number of choices available at each stage also. And then we already developed the students' responses and teacher responses about the activity. Well, Bapak dan Ibu, the hypothetical learning trajectory of learning enumeration rule with Islamic values can be seen in the iceberg on the slide. Students will learn informally through 2 activities that are exploring a map for going to masjid and finding the route for Friday prayer, and then they will learn more formally through the designing their own map, and then the last, they will learn formally by using multiplication rule to solve a mathematics problem. Lastly, we can conclude that the realistic Islamic context generated in this study can be used as an alternative way or reference for teachers to design a series of learning activities that support the development of students' conceptual understanding of enumeration, especially multiplication rules. The learning series consists of 4 activities, from exploring a map for going to masjid, finding the route for Friday prayer, designing student-owned map, until doing good deeds. We also can say that this design can support students to reconstruct their understanding of multiplication rules to determine the possible way of events. And most importantly, the Islamic context can instill good values and deeds that can be applied in everyday life. Hopefully, this hypothetical learning trajectory can be a base for further research to implement it in a teaching experiment, analyze the result using retrospective analysis, and build it into a local teaching theory. I should say enough for my presentation. Suggestions and comments are very welcoming for the development of our research. Thank you Bapak dan Ibu. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.